Good afternoon. My name is Anna Karras, and I'm a public services librarian at the Collier County Public Library. And today I am bringing you part 5 in the series of Artitude, where you become the armchair art historian. Last week we looked at Claude Monet. This week we will look at another Impressionist painter who was worlds apart from Monet himself. We will be looking at Vincent van Gogh. One of the greatest European painters of the 19th century, Van Gogh drew and painted over 30 self-portraits between the years 1886 and 1889, most while in Paris. His collection of self-portraits places him among the most prolific self-portraitists of all time. One of the reasons for this may be that Vincent was very poor and could not afford models or items for still lifes. Drawing himself would also have assisted him in developing his skills as an artist. Vincent was a sensitive, intelligent, and passionate man. Vincent Willem van Gogh was born in 1853 in a small village in the Netherlands. His father, and his father's father, were both Protestant ministers. His mother, a painter, was still in mourning over the stillbirth of her first son, also named Vincent Willem van Gogh. Precisely 1 year to the day after she lost her first Vincent, the second Vincent was born. The Van Gogh family were middle-class people. As Vincent grew up, he loved books, walking in nature with his mother, and drawing. Every week, his mother would take him with her to visit the grave of his deceased older brother out the back gate of their property. His first drawing, which you can see in the middle here on the right, was from 1864, and he gave it to his father for his 42nd birthday. It was done while he was 11 years old. School was not an enjoyable place for Vincent, even though he was a good student and learned 4 languages. The other children made fun of him because he didn't really care to socialize, and they thought he was peculiar. Some researchers now think he may have been on the autistic spectrum. Vincent quit school in his early teens. When Vincent was 16, his uncle sent for Vincent offered him a position in his art dealership, Goupil and Company. He spent about 6 years working for Goupil and Company as a dealer in Hague, Brussels, and London. There are over 700 letters preserved from this time that Vincent had written to his younger brother Theo, who was also an art dealer. In 1873, at 20 years old, Vincent moved to London. While he was in London, he was very disturbed by the poverty and the vast contrast between the rich and the poor all around him. The more Vincent learned about paintings, the more he felt comfortable telling his patrons what works he thought were no good and what not to buy. This may be why his uncle eventually fired him. Vincent started to read the Bible and wanted to help the indigent of society. Around the age of 24, he decided to train in religion. He studied for 3 years. Even though Van Gogh knew 4 languages, he failed his Latin exams, as he said the poor do not speak Latin. And this was exactly what he wanted to do, work with the poor. In 1875, at 25 years old, Vincent took a preacher position in a coal mining community of Borinage in Belgium. Vincent lived the life they lived, dressed like they did, went into the mines to experience their work, shared his clothes, his food. His supervisors found this bizarre and unusual and dismissed him for his behavior. He continued to preach where he could for no salary and living off his family. In 1885, Vincent's father died. By this time, he had broken with religion and felt he had really never made his father proud. Vincent had never really come to terms with the loss of faith. He wanted to believe that his purpose in life was to be a painter. This painting, on the right, was created as a memorial to his father. It is interesting to see the photograph of Vincent's father's Bible, loved and well used, on the left. Then we look at the painting, a relatively new Bible, with a well-used copy of Émile Zola's novel Joie de Vivre, which is The Joy of Life. Do we view Émile Zola's novel as Vincent's symbolism for his father's outdated views? But then he shows respect with the Bible. Note how the candle is burnt out, but there is a light shining on both books. The Bible is open to Isaiah. Does the fact that the Bible is well placed and the novel is precariously by the edge mean anything? Between 1880 and 1885, while Vincent was 27 to 32 years old, he knew he wanted to become an artist but did not have the funds to go to school. Theo, his younger brother, knew a painter, Anton van Rapport, and a cousin of Vincent's, Anton Mauve, taught Vincent perspective, lent him prints to copy, and art books to read. During this time period, Vincent enjoyed drawing people and really started to feel good about himself. After a while, Theo provided oil paints to Vincent, and he would go down to the coast to paint. Most Dutch artists painted tonally at this time. This was the kind of work Vincent saw around him, so that's how he began to paint too. Theo sent Vincent the only money he had, with the understanding that Vincent would send back art that Theo's patrons would buy. The Potato Eaters was Vincent's first major canvas. It took him months, and he made over 3 studies in oil to complete it. You can see on the left sketches of workers in the fields that he used in his work. Vincent specifically used lighting to show tired, lined faces and the gnarled hands of the workers in the painting. After receiving many works of art of working-class people, Theo told Vincent people did not want to buy paintings of people working. They thought the paintings were too dark in theme and too depressing. For a while, Van Gogh was fascinated with birds' nests. In 1885, he made them the subject of 5 still lifes in a row. He wrote to his brother Theo that he thought these would appeal to nature lovers because of the colors. Earlier that summer, Vincent had told Theo how he got the nests. He had gone out with a peasant boy to look for them. They found 6, from which the young had already flown, so that one could take them without too many pangs of conscience. The 33-year-old Vincent arrived in Paris in 1886 with hopeful expectations for the future. He saw a great deal of new art and made friends with young artists. He was by no means the only artist to go to the French capital in the 19th century. Paris had a great deal to offer artists: valuable training, opportunities to exhibit and sell their work, and an inspiring artistic community. Vincent hoped to benefit from this setting and grow as an artist. Vincent went to see a ceiling mural by Eugène Delacroix in the Louvre. It was a revelation. Now he knew how bright colors could work together. During his time there, he also painted picturesque landscapes and flower still lifes. He hoped these subjects would sell well. Vincent paid frequent visits to museums, exhibitions, galleries for inspiration. There he became familiar with both old master paintings and with modern artists such as the Impressionists. He painted new subjects such as city scenes and practiced the Impressionist loose brushstrokes and light color palette. His artistic work evolved at a dizzying pace. He sold a few works at low prices, mostly for paints, room, and board. The 2 years that Vincent spent in Paris were crucial to his development. His work became more modern, and he earned a modest place in the French avant-garde circles. However, 2 years later, the city had lost its appeal for him. Vincent found the art world too competitive. Furthermore, his health suffered from the combination of this particular lifestyle and the cold winters. Paris did, however, give him the tools he was looking for: artistic progress. The modern art in Paris encouraged Vincent to adopt a lighter, brighter, and looser painting style. Japanese prints were often used as packing materials around China imported from the Far East, and were often thrown away afterwards. Vincent collected hundreds of these. The vivid Japanese prints became a huge inspiration for Van Gogh's own work. He hung these papers in his studio so he could gradually absorb the influence of these colorful works. While collecting about 600 Japanese prints, some to study and others that he hoped to sell for income, he eventually began adapting and incorporating their style into his own, integrating the bright color, strong lines, and subject matter like almond blossoms, as you see here. In the spring of 1887, a cafe owner, Agostina Segatori, allowed Vincent to put on a show of these. Cafes were very important places for debates, politics, art, and conversation. And the picture on the left is very interesting. Since paints were so expensive, he would use colored balls of wool to test different combinations before trying them out with his oil paints. He kept them in a little box, and that is what you see there on the left. In 1888, at 35 years old, Vincent disembarked from the train in Arles. His new surroundings lifted his spirits. The landscape in the south of France inspired him, with its blossoming trees, vineyards, and wheat fields. He felt surrounded by color and painted nonstop. In Arles, Vincent painted at the height of his powers. As a true colorist, he used the expressive power of color and produced bold combinations. He also used color for the effective rendering of specific emotions. One of Vincent's biggest dreams was to establish a community of artists in the south of France. He worked tirelessly to make this dream come true. As he worked, he dreamed of an artist community in his yellow house, which you can see there on the left. Van Gogh's paintings of sunflowers are among his most famous. He did them in Arles in the south of France in 1888 and 1889. Vincent painted a total of 5 large canvases with sunflowers in a vase, with 3 shades of yellow and nothing else. In this way, he demonstrated that it was possible to create an image with numerous variations of a single color without any loss of eloquence. While awaiting the visit from his friend, the painter Paul Gauguin, Van Gogh hung several of the sunflower paintings in a room for his arrival. When the painter Paul Gauguin arrived in October, it seemed his dream would finally be fulfilled. Van Gogh made this small portrait on jute, an unusual but inexpensive material, the one you see on the left. Gauguin had bought some in Arles for the two of them to use. The coarse structure of the cloth made painting difficult, so Van Gogh applied the paint thickly and opted for a strong red-green contrast. You can see the painting on the right is by Paul Gauguin, and it is a portrait of Van Gogh. The artists initially worked together happily, but their relationship soon deteriorated. Their discussions about art sometimes grew heated. Vincent believed it was important to work from reality, while Gauguin preferred to paint from his imagination. Just before Christmas in 1888, they had a furious argument, following which a distraught Vincent cut off his left ear. It was the first of several serious breakdowns that plagued him until his tragic death a little over a year later. What was his illness exactly? Was it syphilis? Mental illness? Sucking on paintbrushes, which would induce lead poisoning? Was it drinking? Or not sleeping or eating? Vincent ended up in a hospital in Arles, where he was treated by Dr. Felix Ray, the assistant physician. Ray believed that Van Gogh was suffering from a form of epilepsy brought on in part by too much coffee and alcohol and too little food. Vincent gradually came to his senses in the hospital, and after 2 weeks he was allowed to return home. New breakdowns swiftly followed, however, and he was readmitted. During these attacks, Vincent was totally confused and did not know what he was doing or saying. Between episodes, he did numerous paintings. Nowadays, the diagnosis would tend towards psychosis. Further mental collapses soon followed. It is agonizing to read in Vincent's letters of the fears and doubts with which he was grappling, while at the same time trying to retain some semblance of hope. Vincent's life in Arles did not get any easier when his neighbors organized a petition against him. They were afraid of the painter and wanted him out of the Yellow House. Vincent was devastated. Van Gogh voluntarily admitted himself to an asylum in Saint-Rémy-de-Provence and stayed there for 1 year. He eventually felt trapped at the asylum and wanted to leave. Van Gogh painted this still life in the psychiatric hospital in Saint-Rémy. For him, the painting was mainly a study in color. He set out to achieve a powerful contrast. By placing the purple flowers against a yellow background, he made the decorative forms stand out even more strongly. The irises were originally purple, but as the red pigment has faded over time, they have turned blue. Van Gogh made 2 paintings of this bouquet. In the other still life, he contrasted purple with pink and green. Vincent moved to Auvers, a village near Paris, to be close to Theo. Dr. Gachet, who lived in Auvers, was asked to take care of him. Vincent painted constantly in his final months. Dr. Gachet loved to paint, and he had wanted to be a painter at one time in his life, but his father had forced him to go to medical school instead. They painted together, and Gachet tried to copy Vincent's paintings over and over. Vincent felt like a broken man, and his hope for a full recovery had evaporated. The story of Vincent's love of women is mainly one of setbacks and rejections. There was no shortage of desire or need on his part, but Vincent was never lucky in love. After so many failed relationships, Vincent eventually came to accept his fate. His unpredictable, maladjusted, and unstable personality proved entirely unsuitable when it came to matters of the heart. In Arles in 1888, Vincent turned to prostitutes for comfort and to his requited loves, art, nature, and his dear brother Theo. I took advantage of the opportunity to go into one of the brothels in the little street, which is the limit of my amorous exploits, he wrote to Theo from Arles on March 16, 1888. Vincent painted his bedroom in the summer of 1888 at 35 years old. Revealingly, he placed 2 pillows on a single bed. He had already written years earlier that if you wake up in the morning and you're not alone and you see in the twilight a fellow human being, it makes the world so much more agreeable. He accepted in Arles that there would never again be such a fellow human being for him. Wheat Field with Crows is one of Van Gogh's most famous paintings. It is often claimed that this was his very last work. The menacing sky, the crows, and the dead-end path are said to refer to the end of his life approaching. But that is just a persistent myth. In fact, he made several other works after this one. Van Gogh's wheat fields under stormy skies express sadness, extreme loneliness, but at the same time he wanted to show what he considered healthy and fortifying about the countryside. Van Gogh used powerful color combinations in this painting. The blue sky contrasts with the yellow-orange wheat, while the red of the path is intensified by the green bands of grass. Vincent van Gogh took his own life on the 29th of July, 1890, at just 37 years old. He felt he couldn't go on. The immense demands he made of himself, his obsessive labor, and his mental illness all took a toll that was too great. Vincent felt he had failed as both an artist and as a human being. He shot himself in the chest. Early next morning, his brother Theo was informed. He rushed from Paris to Vincent's bedside, where he remained until his brother died the following night of his injuries. Vincent's first grave was located close to the entrance of Auvers Cemetery. His remains were reinterred in 1905. Theo's remains, who died in 1891, were placed beside Vincent's in 1914. It was a sad life, but it was a prolific life, and we have many beautiful images to look at when we think of Van Gogh. It is a sad note to end upon, but while he lived a life of torture and sadness, he created some of the most beautiful works of art that we have ever seen. So I hope you enjoyed listening to a little bit about Vincent van Gogh today. I will be taking a hiatus for the next couple weeks, but I will be coming back soon with a brand new artist to tell you about, and I hope you will look for it and join me when it comes out. Thanks for listening, and I will see you on the other side.